January 20th, 1943. A shadow lies over Brussels. For 2.5 years, the city has been under the thumb of Nazi occupation. Fear is a constant companion. The Gestapo's fortress at 453 Avenue Louise is a symbol of this terror. Its windows are like eyes, watching every move. Its walls whisper of interrogations, torture, and disappearances. But on this crisp morning, a different sound shatters the silence. Not the jackboots of soldiers, but the roar of an engine. A Hawker Typhoon, one of the fastest, most powerful fighter planes of the war. And at its controls is a man on a mission of vengeance. Baron Jean de Selys Longchamps, a Belgian aristocrat turned Royal Air Force pilot, tightens his grip. His superiors have forbidden this attack. Too reckless, they said, too personal. But Jean is done asking for permission. Today, he will fly against orders. Today, he will strike at the very heart of the terror that has gripped his homeland. The Typhoon screams across the sky, skimming the rooftops of the city he knows like the back of his hand. He's using his childhood memories as a map, navigating the familiar streets from the air. Ahead, the Gestapo headquarters looms, a 12-story monument to cruelty. The officers inside have no idea what's coming. They believe they are untouchable. They are about to be proven wrong. To understand the sheer audacity of this act, you have to understand what life was like in occupied Brussels. The Gestapo and the SS had turned the city into their personal hunting ground. Resistance fighters were rounded up in the dead of night. Families vanished without a trace. Public executions were used to crush any flicker of defiance. The Résidence Belvédère, the Gestapo's base, was a name that inspired dread. To be taken there was a one-way trip for most. People walked the streets with their eyes downcast, a heavy weight of despair in their hearts. Avenue Louise wasn't just a street. It was the epicenter of this horror. So, who was the man who dared to challenge this? Jean de Selys Longchamps was born into a world of privilege, the son of a baron. But he was no stranger to a fight. Adventurous and a little reckless, he was a commissioned officer in the Belgian army's cavalry. When Germany invaded in 1940, he fought fiercely in the desperate rearguard actions. But the Blitzkrieg was overwhelming. When Belgium surrendered, Jean refused to lay down his arms. In a story that sounds like something out of a movie, he escaped the continent by bluffing his way onto a German tank and riding it to Dunkirk, where he boarded a Royal Navy ship to England. His journey to continue the fight was fraught with peril. He was captured by Vichy French authorities and imprisoned, but true to his nature, he escaped. He made his way through neutral Spain and finally got back to England. This time, he looked to the skies. He volunteered for the Royal Air Force. At 28, he was considered too old for pilot training, but he wasn't one to take no for an answer. He forged his papers, got accepted, and by early 1941, he had earned his wings. He was assigned to number 609 Squadron, flying the Hawker Typhoon. This plane was a beast, a fighter bomber that could top 400 miles per hour, armed with 4 devastating 20mm cannons. It was also notoriously dangerous to fly, with a reputation for structural problems. But for Jean, it was the perfect weapon. Throughout 1942, he flew mission after mission, hitting German trains and convoys. But his thoughts were always with Brussels. Through his contacts in the resistance, he heard stories of the suffering, and a plan began to form in his mind. A direct strike on the Gestapo headquarters. He pleaded with his superiors, but they repeatedly denied his request. The Royal Air Force, one officer told him bluntly, cannot fly off and play resistance fighter. So, he waited. His moment came on January 20th, 1943. The official mission was a low-level strike on a railway yard near Ghent. This was his cover. Before takeoff, Jean made his own preparations. He had his ground crew load extra ammunition, and he tucked a small sack into his cockpit. Inside were dozens of miniature Belgian flags, given to him by schoolchildren in London. They were a symbol of hope he intended to deliver personally. The Typhoons roared to life and took off from RAF Manston. The squadron executed the attack on the rail yard perfectly, and then Jean broke formation. He ordered his wingman, Flight Sergeant André Blanco, to head back to base. He switched off his radio, descending until he was just meters above the ground, a ghost flying under the German radar. He was alone, flying purely on instinct and memory, heading straight for Brussels. As he reached the outskirts of the city, he began his calculated assault. First, a high-speed dummy run. He blasted down Avenue Louise, right over the Gestapo building. The shocking roar of his engine drew dozens of confused German officers to the windows to see what the commotion was. That was exactly what he wanted. He looped around the nearby park, the Bois de la Cambre, lining up his attack. Flying at treetop level, he came back with a vengeance. He opened fire, unleashing a storm of 20mm cannon shells. He raked the building from the bottom to the top, floor by floor. Windows shattered. Concrete exploded. The facade of the building was shredded. Chaos erupted inside the once impenetrable fortress. Eyewitnesses described it as a moment of pure hellfire from the sky. The attack was surgical. In just a few seconds, Jean had inflicted massive damage, killing several senior Gestapo and SS officers and wounding many more. But his incredible skill ensured that the surrounding buildings were untouched. No collateral damage, just a direct, devastating blow to the enemy. But he wasn't finished. As he pulled his Typhoon up and away from the smoking building, he reached into his cockpit, grabbed the sack of flags, and released them. They fluttered down over the city, tiny specks of color against the gray winter sky. A message to the people of Brussels that they had not been forgotten. He dropped a large Belgian flag and a Union Jack over the royal palace. He even managed to drop one into his niece's garden. A personal hello from the sky. In less than 30 minutes, Jean de Selys Longchamps had flown from England to Brussels, defied his orders, struck a crippling blow against the Gestapo, delivered a message of hope, and was on his way back. When he landed, his squadron mates greeted him as a hero. His commanding officer, however, was furious. Jean had committed a serious breach of discipline. He was demoted and reassigned to another squadron. But the deed was done. Across Brussels, news of the lone Belgian pilot spread like wildfire. The Gestapo's aura of invincibility was shattered. For 6 weeks, their headquarters was closed for repairs, a visible symbol of their vulnerability. For the citizens and the resistance, it was a much-needed taste of victory. Hope, which had been buried for so long, was reignited. Jean continued to fly, as fearless as ever. But his luck ran out on August 16, 1943. Returning from another mission over Belgium, his Typhoon suffered a catastrophic failure as he approached the runway at RAF Manston. The plane crashed, and Jean, just 31 years old, was killed instantly. A year later, Belgium was liberated. Posthumously, Jean was declared a national hero, awarded Belgium's highest honors for bravery. Today, a bust of his likeness stands outside 453 Avenue Louise, a permanent tribute to his incredible courage. The story of the RAF raid on Brussels is more than just a military anecdote. It's a testament to the power of a single individual to stand up against tyranny. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, one person's defiant act can light a fire of hope that can never be extinguished. Jean de Selys. Longchamp's flight was a declaration that freedom is always worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. If you found this story of courage as inspiring as we did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories from history. We'll see you next time.